let's form a corporation right now, limited liability corporation, black powder self-defense. We can come up with shucks, speed loaders. You got your Dragoon and you got 3 or 4 preloaded cylinders. Between the gun and 3 or 4 cylinders, you've added an extra 140 pounds.
Brent, you ignorant slut.
Well, thanks for joining the Gun Cranks. I'm Guns Magazine editor Brent Weed, along with American Handgunner editor Tom McHale, bobbing his head along, and Roy Huntington, our special assignments. You're an editor, right? Special assignments editor. I never can remember that.
Projects editor.
Editor.
I thought it was Huntinini.
Yeah. I answer to anything, though, as you know.
Well, thanks for joining us. We've got a interesting chat today that I've got a pretty strong feeling about, but I'm sure Tom will have some contrarian notion. And that is, we're going to talk about black powder for self-defense. Now, my question is, why? I mean, steam locomotives were a cool thing, and they're still around to some extent as tourist attractions, but there's better ways to move trains. And it's the same with handguns. If you've only got your, cap and ball pistol, and that's all you've got, well, that's better than a big rock. But who in their right mind would carry black powder? But I will say we get a lot of letters about that. So, Tom, I've planted my black powder stake firmly in the ground. Now, what do you think about all that?
Brent, you ignorant slut.
I was going to say, he's going to be contrary.
Softball, slow pitch.
You're not, nothing personal, but you're not considering the big picture.
Okay.
Are there times when it would be nice to have a less lethal option? Yes, the answer is yes. So, and I know for a fact, because I'm going to do a preemptive strike on Roy here, because he has talked about the value of a fire extinguisher for self-defense and home defense and crowd control and stuff like that. So where I'm going, you see where I'm going? We got the best of all worlds in a black powder revolver right here. We got clouds of billowing smoke. If you shoot twice, you won't see anything. So you're probably not going to hit your target. Less lethal. I didn't say not lethal. I said less lethal, because the odds are much lower you're going to hit anything. And you got a smoke screen for your escape. You got smoke in the guy's eyes and little bits of burning powder. I mean,
Roy, I need to lay down.
I can see practical uses for this.
That's actually a really cool idea. I never thought of that before. Just load your 6-shot 44 Walker with everything but a bullet, and put a lot of grease on the top of the charges, because that'll be extra squishy and gushy and everything. And you're right. You light somebody up with that, Well, because they used to say,
light up is the key. Huh? They're going to be on fire after you have at close range.
Well, that's where that came from. As a matter of fact, I did a video one time, and it was because in the Old West, they would say, so I lit him up. Well, because when they had a toe-to-toe shoot with black powder, it would catch their, cotton wool clothes on fire. And so they literally would light them up. And what Tom says is true, because I remember there was another one. If you look at all of a lot of old engravings of gunfights in the saloon, you'll see a lot of them guys are kind of leaning down and they're holding their gun up like this and they're shooting. It's because after the first shot or two, you had to look under the smoke cloud to see what was going on. And no, it's the truth.
I know.
You brought up all new interesting things. We did a cowboy action shoot, or not cowboy. How do you fight with Old West guns at Thunder Ranch a million years ago? And one of them was, we were in this little saloon that he built, and there were lanterns, the old fashioned hurricane type lanterns. So we had 3 or 4 of them, and we shot black powder, and at the first shot, it blew out all the candles. And Clint was laughing, and he said, "You remember where what is it? At the shot, the lights went out. At the sound of the shot, the lights went out." Well, they did. It was really just, that big concussion and so you brought up a lot of interesting things. I like that idea a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
My hat's off to you, Tom. You're absolutely right. And I could not figure out where you were going with this. And wow, I'm flabbergasted.
That was innovative.
But a related point.
Yeah.
Mike Venturino, our esteemed shooting iron columnist, and what's the one he does for you called?
He does
You guys
Montana
know.
Musings.
Montana Musings. That's right. So you guys know of the Duke, right? So he he has this story. I just ran across it not too long ago, and I guess he had a black powder rifle, and he ran across a rattlesnake. He was with a buddy, and he shot it with his black powder rifle. And his buddy turns to him and he says, "Well, you pretty much killed it, and you barbecued it too."
and lit the prairie on fire.
Wow. Well, and I was just reading, John Taffin has been on a tear for the last year about black powder paper cartridges and cap and ball pistols. And he's talked a lot about chain fires. Now, I have pretty limited cap and ball experience. I've never had a chain fire where all the cylinders go off at once or several of them. That's fun in your hand, I can only imagine. Roy, have you ever been around or seen a chain fire?
I did. I'm living proof you can survive them. I was about 18 and I had a 36 caliber. This is really cheap, Italian clone. And I did not put grease, because that's why you put grease on in front of the chambers, is to keep the sparks from leapfrogging. And so I had a double fire. So it fired the one in the cylinder, or in the barrel there, and then it fired the one just next to it, which zinged off the frame. And fortunately it was black powder, but what a 60 grain round ball soft lead, so it didn't really hurt anything. But I just thought, well, I guess I should put that grease on the front of them. But you're right, though. Taffin's been talking about, black powder for self-defense, if that's all you've got, and stuff like that. So, but see, I've had too many problems. It's like you go to cock the gun and the cap falls down into the innards, and now it's not you, it's locked up. Or it's always fun to go click, psst, nothing.
I would say, though, if style points are important, can you imagine pulling a Dragoon from your belt and, fighting it out mano a mano with, say, some gangbanger shooting sideways? I mean, I think you'd die, but that'd be pretty cool.
Or maybe not. Yeah.
Maybe not the way they shoot.
Definitely.
Yeah.
It makes you want to say, unhand her, you ruffian. Just before you blast him. I had a Ruger, what was it called? Old Army? It was adjustable sight, black powder. Yeah. I had a blued one. And I have to tell you, the darn thing would shoot 2 inches at 25 yards.
Sure.
That's nice nice revolver.
When they work really good. I know the old Walker was like 140 grain round ball. Yeah. At like 1,100 feet per second.
Yeah. I mean, of course, it was a crew-served weapon, but
yeah. But until they invented the 44 Magnum, that was the most powerful handgun.
Yeah.
A Colt Walker, which is amazing. I remember reading in the late 60s in my American Rifleman that there was some guy, he was an invalid. He was in a wheelchair, and he collected black powder guns, and he used a black powder cap and ball pistol in a defensive shooting. So he really did it. And he shot a burglar, and then the cops didn't like it. And he got into trouble, and something else happened. I don't remember the details, but I do remember that was the first and only time I've ever heard of that, but it happened and it worked. And I remember in the interview, he said, well, this was the only gun I had, and I understand how they work. So that's what I used,
Wow.
And if you think about this, people use black powder for self-defense for hundreds of years.
Right.
Yeah. And some of them lived.
Yeah. So. Well, I was going to say, Roy, as a retired police officer, I am too. I'm trying to remember one or two where you ran across a felon who was carrying a black powder pistol, because at that time in our state, the state laws said if it was prior to 1898 or whatever, it wasn't a gun per se, and they've closed that loophole now. But I've run across a couple of guys that carried those with the expressed idea of, as a convicted felon, that didn't fall as a firearm. So, but I never had to fight a guy with one or anything like that. So, but
I think it's still like that in a lot of states. They're not considered a gun, because you can order one from Cabela's and they'll ship it right to your front door.
Yep.
So there's not really a gun. And I remember a couple of felons that I knew when I was a policeman, they used to shoot crossbows. for the same reason. They couldn't own a gun, but they could own a crossbow.
Yeah.
That's tough to conceal.
I know, but it was a little bit scary too. It's like, I don't know that I want him to have a crossbow, you know?
Well, you know, they
So I think
say,
about the first.
oh, I was going to say, they say everything old is new again. And we've seen it time and time, countless time again, that something, you know, from the misty realms of the past in the shooting world suddenly gets brought forward, maybe slap a new finish on it or call it something, and it's the newest, latest thing. Guys, what I'm thinking, let's form a corporation right now, limited liability corporation, black powder self-defense. We can come up with shucks and speed loaders. You know, you got your Dragoon and you got 3 or 4 preloaded
More
cylinders.
Dragoons.
You know, on your belt. I mean, between the gun and 3 or 4 cylinders, you know, you've added an extra 140 pounds. So you probably need a belt and suspenders. But I mean, I don't see anything wrong with it. Yeah, the speed load drill's a little slower, but you know, we're all getting a little slower.
We only have one marketing challenge to overcome, and I'm sure we can.
What's that?
So these days, people get all hot and bothered about a new pistol if it jams once in like the first 300 rounds, right? So say 1 in 300 failure rate is intolerable. So serious question, what do you guys, in your experience, and I shoot them too, what do you think the real failure rate of a black powder revolver is? In practical terms, not in the papers. I'm just talking like your own personal experience.
I have shot black powder revolvers like all day in the desert and never had a problem. Yeah. But I will say though, it's, you know, it's being careful. It's cleaning in between loadings. It's using fresh caps, you know.
Yep.
I mean, I wouldn't want to load a black powder revolver and keep it loaded for a week and rely on it, you know. Yeah. I mean, because even who was the he used to have the big hat cowboy, you know, bad guy shooter. He had a pair of ivory stock Navy 36s. You know, the most famous gunfighter in the world that I can't remember his name on. But he used black powder Navy 36 caliber revolvers in the cartridge era. Because that's what he grew up with and that's what he was comfortable with. But he would load them in the morning and then carry them all day. And that night he would shoot both guns, clean them, reload them. And and he did that every day. Huh. You know, yeah.
I'm thinking,
that's crazy.
Maybe wrong on this. Somebody out here will know. I thought that was Wild Bill. No?
Wild Bill. There it is. Yeah. It was
carried cap and balls.
No, not Wild Bill. Come on. Who's the other guy? You know, Deadwood. He was in Deadwood. He got shot in the back of his head at he like aces and eights, the dead man's hand.
The dead man's hand.
Yeah, only the most, and we're all just too old and senile now, and I can't remember his name. So we'll think of it. So
as soon as we hit done on recording, it'll immediately, we'll all 3 at the same time shout out the name.
I know, because it's all, you know, it's like Wyatt Earp. No, that's not it. You know, it's like, you know, Billy the Kid. No, that's not it. Yeah. You know,
I was going to answer I had an observation. It seems to me with cap and ball that if they run, the failure rate's probably not a lot worse than your average gun. But boy, if you get one that's not working, it just doesn't work. And typically it's the cheap ones. At least that's been my experience, that it just, everything that can go wrong will go wrong. And it's just constantly, it's like, this thing is a boat anchor. So I think maybe that's why.
I must have the cheap ones because I probably run about 1 in 10.
Really?
Or something.
You have to learn.
I mean, just
how
all
to
the
do
little
it.
bits of percussion caps and stuff getting all over the place and jamming up the works.
Like, I've had really good luck with rifles, muzzle loading rifles.
Yeah, rifles.
I mean, you just take your time, put a fresh cap on it, load it correctly, it shoots every time. You know.
Well, I'll tell the story there. It wasn't a self-defense scenario. It was a hunting scenario with I think it was a 45 caliber Kentucky rifle that I built, first time ever. And, you know, if you don't wear glasses when you're shooting percussion, when the doctor pulled that piece of the cap out of my eyelid, it got my attention. And I'm a real stickler now for eye pro because just by the grace of God, that didn't go into my eye because, you know, another 3/8 of an inch, and that'd been right in the center. And that would have, because this was back in, I was probably 20, 22, somewhere in through there. So I would have been old One Eye had things worked out a little bit differently. So I've dodged a bullet twice on guns blowing up like that. So wear your eye pro. But
yeah, I think part of the attraction though is that like I have a little 31 Colt clone and a little 36 New Police, and they're just cool. I mean, they're fun. They're cool.
Yeah.
I mean, you tuck one in your waistband. You think, oh yeah, this would work. I mean, I could keep the bad guys away with this, but the reality of the black powder for self-defense is where it has to all come grinding to a halt. And so basically, I'm going to go on record and say, black powder for self-defense, no. If it's the only gun you have and it's sitting there and there's a bad guy over there, it's like Brent, I think you said better than a rock.
Yeah.
But when you can,
I've got to say, Roy, we've talked about we need to come out and visit again. Next time I pull down your lane, what I want to see is Roy with a red sash around his waist and a pair of dragoons stuck, and you kind of do that thing looking for rogues and rapscallions. I'm sure
With
you've got a few in
those,
your neighborhood.
like that big broad hat. And why can't we remember his name? Jeez Louise. Our comments are going to be full.
Shot in the back of the head by the coward Dan.
Yeah, his girlfriend sort of was Calamity Jane. She's buried next to him. I think
wasn't it Big Nose Kate was his girlfriend?
No, that's Doc Holliday.
Doc Holliday.
Yeah,
he was a contemporary of Doc Holliday. Who are we talking about?
I know. I'm so embarrassed. All the comments are all going to say, "Oh yeah, idiots!
You idiots!" Okay, we'll challenge you now on the YouTube comment section. You'll get a gold star to be the first one to say, "Hey, you knuckleheads, you're talking about in the number 7 saloon in Deadwood. I've been there to that place, and I've been to his grave, and I can't think who we're talking about."
This is
That's
so.
insane.
What do you guys?
Okay.
Do you have Tom? Do you have your computer in front of you?
It was Charlie Sheen, wasn't it?
Huh?
Wasn't it Charlie Sheen?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Right. No. 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 It was Jeff Bridges played him.
Ah, that's right.
In like Deadwood or something. Oh, this is so embarrassing. I've written articles about him, for crying out loud. I saw his guns at the museum there in Wyoming.
Yeah.
And it's like, this is so embarrassing.
This is insane. Okay, well, we're pushing. We've gone way past. We're in overtime. We're in double overtime now. Yeah. So anyway, I think we need to do this one again. I've had fun talking about this, and I got about 10 more stories. So anyway, make sure you check out AmericanHandgunner.com, American Handgunner Magazine, their special interest publications, Guns Magazine, gunsmagazine.com, the Guns Magazine podcast, and of course you can listen to the audio version of the Gun Crank. So did I miss anything there, guys?
Just the name of who the gunfighter was.
You got to keep twisting that knife. Huh?
Well, for anybody that's ever done anything like this, it's like being on TV when you're watching Jeopardy. It's like, well, that's the easiest thing in the world. Yeah, when you're standing there, the pressure's on, the lights are on, the camera's on. It's like, I can't remember my own name, let alone, who this guy was.
I got a studio audience out here.
It's not Buffalo Bill. We know that.
No.
But he even went and acted on some bad plays, and that failed. And the dime novel, guys wrote novels about him.
He just won't let it go.
Well, it's making me crazy too. So
you're making us look worse and worse and worse.
I know. It's nuts, isn't it?
Gentlemen, I'm pulling the pin. I'm tossing a grenade. We're done. So
thank you.
Join us next time where, Tom, help me remember, you have a better memory than I. We're going to start and mention this guy every 5 minutes in the next episode. So we'll remember the name. So anyway, otherwise, on behalf of Roy Huntington and Tom McHale, I'm Brent Wheat. We'll see you next time on the Gun Cranks.
I'm Gunsmack's editor, Brent Wheat, along with Tom McHale, editor of American Handgunner, Eric Yellowhouse, editor of AmericanPop.com, and Dad About, Man About Town, Roy Huntington.